What's up? It's Kevin, the editor, here again. Here for my matches that I will go over with Raven later. So, might as well just jump in. Starting at a not great elo, so we'll see if there's any improvement. Here we go. The French. Here we go again. I would push this, but last time Raven said that I don't need to do that. I'm just going to do nothing, because I can't think of anything to attack. Yeah, I think it's better to get my rook on the open file and his queen is on the open file. That seems like a good trade to me. That was maybe bad for me. No way. Now that bishop's all locked up. Okay. I think he's trapped. I think we got him. His rook tried to come in my house. I said no way. I said get out of my house. I'm up 2. Let's trade. Let's trade everything. I'm up 2 and your bishop's terrible. This is embarrassing. I think I had to win, but I don't know what it was. I just gave up my queen for free. Where's the resign button? Alright, one more. We're 0-1. We're going to come back, though. Let's do it. What the hell is this? I think that I can attack this and make him weaken these pawns also. That's my plan. I have no idea what's going on. This is a very weird opening. But I can't let Raven down. Okay, that's what he was going for. Now I know. Bad, I think, but I don't think it's terrible. Like, if he takes this, I just move here and I'm fine.
A few moments later.
Alright, 0 for 2. Let's go again. Let's continue the punishment. I won't let you down this time. Loyal viewers. Viewers at home, lend me your strength. Even though this happened in the past. I'm up, might as well try and make him trade. Nice. Alright, we're on the board. We're back. We are so back. Nice. Alright, just need to be knocked down a few elo points and now I'm back to winning. Nice. It's not looking good again, but I don't think it's over or anything. That was his good bishop, so I think that's probably good for me. I think I could probably get a draw. As usual, I just don't know what's to do. What's weak? This pawn's weak. Oh, this pawn's weak.
This is the first pause the video of the game, so feel free to pause the video and try to find the absolute best move.
Alright, I think we got another one, folks. There's going to be partying in the Kevin Dome tonight. Come on, 2 for 2. Or 2 for 4, but 2 in a row. That counts for something. Come on, give me something. Come on. He's running out of time, too. He gave up. Woo! Woo! At least we're kind of even for the day. I don't know, we started at 9:44.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Hello again, I'm here with Kevin, the editor.
What's up?
Yeah, he's played a lot of games. We're going to go over them. I'm excited to be discussing some very interesting games. I looked at them. A lot of chaotic positions.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised by how wild some of them were. I didn't know what the hell to do.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah, no, you played well. It was very interesting. Yeah, it seems like my style is already starting to rub off on you. You're starting to push a lot more pawns farther down the board.
I was trying to, but then I guess we'll get to it. I felt like I did a good job of not like throwing stuff away immediately, but I don't know how to attack. So you know, we'll get into the specifics, but I just did not know what to do against these people.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk a lot about it. So okay, this game you played e4, e5. You were white against the famous Andre J. Sim.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Bishop e5. What do you think about this f6 move?
Not great because it blocks the knight.
Yeah, this is probably a mistake. Yeah, generally this is considered terrible because it blocks the knight. It also weakens this diagonal. There's a really famous trick that is this. This is called Damiano's defense, and it's terrible. Knight takes, pawn takes, queen h5 check, and they're already losing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Their position is a bit better than this one, though, because with their knight here, they're defending this. So you don't have the classic fork here. If we go back to this position, the analogous one does not work here. Because after queen h5, g6 takes.
That is still good to have in my pocket, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good pocket trick. Alright, so f6, you played a very fine move here. This is what I tell most of my students. If your opponent does some weird stuff with their pawns and it doesn't really look like there was any obvious purpose to it, then it's best just to break in the center. Do you know why that is?
I just know I want it to. It's good to take the center, but more specifically, I don't really have a plan or idea.
Well, the thing is it's good to think about chess as sort of a balancing act. When white is getting developed and when white is opening the position, they're bringing their pieces out super quickly. As soon as your opponent starts wasting their time with pawn moves like that, that means that balance, that ratio, is being skewed more and more dramatically in your favor.
Yeah.
And for that purpose, an open game is going to suit your better development much better than the opponent. So your opponent hit you with a check. You played bishop d2, which is definitely fine, but in most cases it's best just to play c3.
Makes sense. I remember thinking that after I did it, because I forgot exactly what the thought process was. But yeah, then my queen's more constricted in its options with the bishop moving instead of the pawn.
Yeah. The other idea is that you're just getting a purely free tempo here. They're going to have to move this bishop out of the way.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you know, this isn't a fantastic move, but this is generally considered a good move because you're reinforcing your center.
And I do get what you're saying with the tempo. It's essentially free.
Yeah. It's a free move.
Yeah. Free is good. If it's free, it's for me.
Yeah. Alright, so you played bishop d2. Bishop d2 also isn't bad. They traded. You could also argue, by the way, that you sort of got a free tempo here, because in the end, the bishops came off the board, but you're the one who's gotten a piece off of their starting square. So, yeah, there's an argument to be made for what you did. c3 is just the more classic way to get the free tempo, though.
Mm-hmm.
d6. By the way, what your opponent is doing here, this is a sign of a very weak player. No offense, Andre J. Sim, but in your rating range, below 1,000, people love throwing in checks for literally no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the famous Fisher quote?
I do not.
It's Patzer sees check, Patzer gives check. And it's a bit insulting.
Yeah.
It means pretty much if you're a bad player, you're going to always give a check whenever it's possible.
Yeah.
But it is largely true, though. It doesn't matter if you have a million checks. If it hasn't materialized to checkmate, it doesn't mean a thing. I've had several games where without giving a single check, my opponent resigns because checkmate is imminent.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a fun fact.
That makes sense.
Takes d6, d5. So here I bet you thought you had him on the ropes.
I did.
It's a bit tricky though. So yeah, they have this a6 move. Here you have a bunch of things you could do. You could take immediately with your pawn. You could take with your bishop. That's what you went for. And that does turn out to win a pawn. There are other options here as well though. You could also play bishop a4.
Mm-hmm.
Did you consider this?
No.
Well, it doesn't. It does keep the pin going for a move longer. There's a chance that they wouldn't know what to do here, but they do have b5, and in the end, they're able to break the pin just the same.
Is that better? Like, is it better for them to have their pawns on the 7 rank, or for them to develop their pawns a bit? But it's kind of a wonky structure.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. First of all, pawns can't be developed. Pawns, development is when we talk about the fact that pieces become better as they get farther out in the game.
Okay.
Pawns always are pretty terrible. They're never really doing that much. The best you can get is a center pawn that's covering some central squares, such as this one. The big question here is we more or less want to compare the resulting positions. So the position you got in the game was this one, and the position you would get here is this one. There is a difference, though. It's your turn here. So while in the other position they didn't have a b pawn, in this position they're up a pawn. It's a relatively useless pawn, but you get an extra tempo. That would probably be in your favor. What you should be going for here is this pawn is almost definitely going to be lost. If you had time to build a bridge to it with something like c4, b4, and b5 to hook it in with some healthy pawns, that would be great. It doesn't seem like you're going to get that time, though.
That's kind of something I wasted time pushing, I think, the b pawn.
Yeah, you wanted to.
And then I pretty much immediately realized when he moved the knight that was a waste of time, and I messed up.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a worthwhile goal. The other thing you get here, though, is at least for a very long time, this pawn is not coming here.
Mm-hmm. Does
that give you any ideas as to what you could do? What square that's now open could you use because they can't put a pawn here?
b4 or b3? Yeah, I'm thinking b4 because he can't push up if I put... I don't know what I would put there.
I'm not sure exactly... Well, what squares does would the pawn be controlling here? It would be controlling
d5 and d5?
Yeah.
Also, I want to get my knight to d5.
Yeah, this would be really beautiful. Knight c3 to d5.
That makes sense.
This is a really classic idea here. And the idea here is you have really nice tension. If they take, you've finally been able to build your bridge and your pawn is safe.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they could take here, but now you would be able to place them in the, I'm thinking of what the term is. I think this is called the Korean, I can't remember the word. I'm thinking of something. The Korean shish kebab trick.
Famous.
Or no, the Korean shish kebab twist. That's it.
Very famous.
Yeah, you have these two pieces in a line, and he can't move the knight because then you're going to hit him with knight c7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he'd have to play this, and now he's just stuck after queen c4. You got this pressure here, so he can't move the knight. He also can't castle because your queen is looking at him there.
And I bet at my level, it'd be pretty often they're not going to see that bishop move, and you're going to get them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so this would have been a very interesting position. I think that's the main takeaway from this, is that in these positions, just be happy to trade here, because you are getting this fantastic d5 square. So takes, rook b8 happened. You played b4.
I was trying to rush. I don't know what I was thinking. I was trying to rush to the pawn and thinking maybe, you know, the queen's covering the b lane, and then maybe I could have time to push up the a pawn and start building a bridge, but it makes no sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a noble goal. You're just not going to have time for it, though.
Yeah.
Like, you would need, what, 4 moves? You would need 1, 2... Even then, you couldn't do this because the rook is still covering it. So you would need to do 1, 2, 3, and then 4.
Yeah.
That's going to take way too long.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you should have done instead?
Knight to c3?
Yeah, I think knight c3 is still fantastic. This move seems to always be fantastic. If they play knight e7, knight d5... again, if they take, you get the bridge. And if they take here, then you get them under the nice Korean shish kebab twist.
Yep.
Yeah, this is very uncomfortable. This is just so uncomfortable. Like, even as a grandmaster looking at this would not be fun to play. Bishop b7, and then this really tightens the screws here. They could castle queenside for the moment, but after queen c4, they can't move a muscle.
I see.
Really crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It's the magic of chess. So going back, okay, so... yeah, I'm looking at... This is a very interesting idea. So knight c3, they could also take here. And they could fracture your structure, but now you have time to set this up properly. And they're not even going to win this pawn. And if they don't win this pawn, this is covering a lot of annoying squares for them.
This looks very good for... I'd be happy to play this as white.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those cases where, you know, technically you have ugly doubled pawns here. I normally tell my students isolated doubled pawns are the worst type to have because they're just going to be picked off if they're targeted. Like a neighboring pawn on any adjacent file, for instance, the D or B file, will never be able to defend them.
Yeah.
But here, yeah, you have a fantastic apparatus of control here. This would be really nice. Okay, so let's look at the game. So in the game you played b4, knight e7, castles, knight takes c6, c3. Good move. You're learning. This is the tree.
Yep.
Yeah. Very nice.
Don't let the knight move.
Yeah, keep the knight in jail. Bishop g4. Uh-oh. So here, yeah, they're threatening to ruin your structure. You got to watch out for that. Generally, this is not a good move, but what I'm going to tell you is just a good idea for people at your level. Normally, you should not move knights away from the center. Do you remember why?
Because we want to be in that golden square or whatever?
Yeah, the outer center.
Yeah.
And you're right. In particular, these are, I guess, for the sake of this argument, the red squares, but normally they're the golden squares.
Yeah.
In this case, though, this bishop is going to be a bit locked in against your pawns. We can build a pawn cage around the bishop. We could just move our knight out of the way. And the idea is that if they play something like castles, we're going to play f3, bishop h5. And slowly but surely, we will reroute our knight. But the idea is that we want their bishop just pointed at pawns defended by other pawns.
Yeah.
So this was, yeah, this is like sort of the second... it's like a corollary to how we play against the knights. It's very similar. We want their bishop to only be looking at squares that are defended by pawns.
Yep.
And this is actually better than our pawns being all on dark squares. Because if our pawns were all on dark squares, contrary to what you may imagine, you don't have any weak pawns, but you have tons of weak squares that the bishop could just look through.
Yep.
So this is ideal. This is really completely ideal. You want to build concrete against bishops and trees against knights. You know why that is?
Because it works?
Yeah, I thought you were going to have a funny rejoinder. We might edit one in.
Yeah.
Because knights can't jump.
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm in learning mode. My stand-up specials later on in the series.
Yeah. We'll figure out jokes later on. That's a later part of this course.
Yeah.
So in this position, though, I wanted to just ask you a very positional question. If you could place your knight anywhere on this board here, what do you think would be one of the best squares? Or if I only gave your knight 2 moves,
2 moves. Without without them moving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Free moves.
Yeah.
Like Costco samples.
E3?
Mm-hmm. Why?
There's nothing that can attack it, and the 5th rank has 2 open positions for it.
Yeah, exactly. This is fantastic. Your knight on e3, so let me just burn time with them so we're allowed to make this. Yeah, this is a fantastic setup. If pawns are frozen like this, generally you want your knight behind the pawn.
Yeah.
And the reason why is you're looking at 2 weak squares. You're also generally looking at 2 squares that they might want to make a pawn break on. I don't think we've ever talked about that. Do you know what a pawn break is?
No.
It's so pawn tension is when pawns are attacking pawns, and a pawn break is a specific type of pawn tension in which they cannot escape the pawn tension. So this is a classic example of a pawn break. Like, let me just move this back. For instance, like, let's say this was here. When they play this, there's no way to avoid this trade. Mm-hmm. You only have one choice. Do you want to take, or do you want to let them take?
Yeah.
So pawn breaks really benefit every piece on the board, because with every single piece, their opportunities expand with their opportunities expand with
The loss of every pawn.
Yeah, exactly. There are more open diagonals, more open files, more open ranks.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. What piece do you think in particular benefits from the pawn breaks, though?
Knights?
No. Knight's actually the least, because knights can hop over pawns.
That's true. On this board, it's the knight right at this moment.
That's because you built the tree.
That's true. I really don't know.
So it's the rooks. The rooks can't stand their own pawns.
That makes sense.
Yeah. They're just bottled up and bottled in. I can't tell you how many games I've seen at lower levels that go something like this, and I'm sure everyone who watches this video is going to have the same idea. Like, everyone starting out in chess learns this type of position, and then they all just have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because just what are you supposed to do with the rooks?
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, I taught some students this. Once you teach a student what a pawn break is, their rating immediately goes up 200 points, because they realize they just need to do something like this. Like, they're going to move their king here, move their knight out of the way, and finally play f4. And now all of a sudden their rooks have something to do.
It does look much better.
Yeah. Yeah, so pawn breaks are super important. Pawn breaks are objectively, like, one of the most important things in all of chess. So anyway, so let's get back to it. So yeah, just to sum up what I was talking about, the reason the knight here is so fantastic is not only are you looking at weak squares, you're also playing against their pawn breaks, which is what their rooks want to go for. Nice. Alright, so let's get back to the game. So, you played h3. This is not a good move, because they're happy to make this trade, and you're just giving it to them with the tempo. You should probably fix your pieces. If we look at your queen, it's in the way of this knight. One of the drawbacks of you building this tree is that you don't have the golden square.
Yep.
So you gotta make do in another way. So queen e3 would be a good move. You're just gonna bring your knight out. And for the moment now, if he takes, he hasn't been able to inflict doubled pawns.
Yep.
You can just take with the queen.
Yeah, double pawn was a giant pain.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, just by the way, just in general, I know we are covering a lot, but you do generally want to have your knight here. If you really want to cushion this pressure the best way possible, just put your knight on d2.
Yep.
Yeah. They're really, like, as I said many times, this is the golden square, but if for some reason your knight needs to be here, there are some benefits to having it here. For instance, it tandems with the other knight better. Believe it or not, though, sometimes that can be a disadvantage, because then this knight can't retreat.
I can see it, yeah.
Yeah. Chess is a very, very complicated game. So anyway, h3, takes, castles. Here you missed an option for a nice tactic. Can you spot it?
Oh, fork the king and the knight?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just look for the hanging pieces. So, do you know that rule? Of the hanging pieces? You just look for the piece that's loose, that's undefended, and the king always counts as undefended. Because technically some people look at this and think, oh, well, the king is defended. No? Well, it doesn't matter. A king always has to respond to a threat because of the rules of chess. So.
Yep.
Exactly. Very nice. Yeah, so you botched that one.
Yep. There's a few botches. There's one that I already pointed out to you that's particularly heinous.
Yeah, heinous is a good word to describe it. So f5, so you went for the check. Patzer sees the check, Patzer gives the check.
Correct.
Yeah, this check, this is a useless check.
Yep.
What was your idea with this check?
I honestly think at this point I was aware that the knight was there was something like the knight was vulnerable, and I had some wacky scheme instead of just going to d5.
I only realized that now. I looked at this game before recording this video, but I'm only realizing that now that you went here only after.
Yeah, after I let them get out of the whole situation, the whole reason I was going there in the first place.
Yeah, this is the Soviet method of triangulation, but really properly applied here.
Yeah.
So okay, so knight e7, queen a5. This is extremely risky business.
Yeah.
Your queen is all the way over on this side. All he needs to do is play on your king side, and you should be dead lost here. Because first of all, you have no pieces over on the king side, and your pawns are terrible. Generally, if one of those conditions is in place, your king is going to be weak and very vulnerable to an attack. If you have both of those conditions met, you need to be scared. You know the word I want to use, but I can't use it because that's a YouTube video. But you should be scared out of your mind.
Yep.
It should be like Armageddon mode, because your king has no pieces to defend it, and they're going to be super open lanes, extremely weak squares to target. If your opponent played knight g6 here, I would, if we turn on the evaluation, I would bet it's going to say it's already just completely hopeless, because the knight is coming to f4 and a queen is coming to g5. I don't know what's happening with the computer now, but anyway. You get the point.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, this is just outrageous, right? They're going to check. They're going to check, play knight f4.
Yeah.
And you pretty much have your choice of what score you want to get mated on, but that's it. Your queen is all the way out of the picture, right? If you just hadn't done anything and left your queen back here, at least your queen would have been better suited to guarding some of these squares.
Yep.
It would have, even then that would have been bad, but it would have been better. So your opponent played rook b6, though. He also was getting sort of tunnel vision. He was really focused on this a6 pawn. He didn't want to lose it. You played knight a3, you played knight c6. He was so focused on that queen. If he just plays knight g6, he's going to mate you. Like, some combinations, like, for instance, if you play king h1 here to get your king out of the way, this is a good defensive idea. You're just not in time. They'll play queen h4, and...
Going back to the position, right, is this... go back to when it was first... this pawn structure was ruined.
Yeah.
Or we'll just... You can stop here for the question I'm going to ask anyway. Is my goal... At this point, I'm sure it could go multiple ways depending on what the opponent does, but am I trying to move my rook and get my king back closer to the queen side? Or am I trying to shore up my defenses and get the king to h2?
That's a very good question. Generally, your king is still not going to be safe on f1, especially because they can play a pawn break and immediately open that side of the board.
So I'm generally thinking...
h2.
I'm already locked in here, so I'm trying to defend h2.
Well, the idea is you want to hide your king on a file that's going to be least likely to open. Unfortunately, your king is dead open here.
Yeah.
They're going to play f5 and then either queen g5, or they can bring a rook after it's been castled from f6 to g6.
And it just takes too long to get the king past the rook. Like, it would take... I'd have to move the rook, move the king, move the king.
Well, in that case, you're arguing for king just staying in the center and never castling, right? That type of...
That's what in my mind during the game, those were my two options.
That's not a good option. I think you're too focused on that game I showed you yesterday. That was a very rare exception.
But even then, I'm just thinking, I know my king can't be here, so my natural instinct, I either go left or right.
Well, you don't want to go in the center, because then you're always going to be vulnerable from like 5 or 6 different angles.
Yeah.
It's a geometric game. If you have to cover 5 angles, it's going to be a lot more tricky. Over on the edge of the board, there are only going to be 3 angles.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I have to think more about... Well, first of all, avoiding this position, but what to do here, because I was really...
Yeah.
It feels hopeless. That queen has so much power.
Yeah. It's a powerful queen.
Yeah, once she starts checking your king, it's like, oh man, I made big mistakes in my life.
She's full of the vinegar.
Yeah.
Another problem with your structure as well is that, with these 2 pawns here and this pawn push, do you remember what an outpost is?
Yeah.
There's an outpost on this square. Let me find a color. Yeah. This knight is just going to slowly wrap around to this square, and you really have nothing to do.
Yep.
You're in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah.
At Grandmaster level, this would already be close to resignable. So this is a very interesting position, though. But so going back to what I was saying, this file is definitely open. This file can easily be open because they can play f5, right? And even if technically after takes you have a pawn here, that doesn't change the fact that they're going to have rooks shooting at you really quickly. We want to look for a file where you have a pawn, but more importantly, they have a pawn, and they're not going to be able to get rid of it, and that's the h file.
Yep.
How are they ever going to trade off this pawn?
Yep.
So they could technically still play like f5 and maybe get their rook in there somehow. That's going to take a lot longer. So yeah, your king should go to h2, and then a setup I usually recommend for my students is just place your rook from g1 to g3.
Yep.
And you're just covering everything. You're on an open file. You might get some tricks. Objectively, you are a lot worse. At the end of the day, this knight is going to set itself on f4. You're going to really suffer, but at least it's salvageable. I think it's really ironic that of all the games, this was the game that you won.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's just a complete crapshoot. Check. King h8, queen d5. I was thinking about that. I mean, maybe we could go. This is going off on a tangent, but they're betting on games between people under 1,000 would be very fun.
Yeah.
It would be very lucrative. So
Might as well
queen
just
A5.
roll dice. Same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So queen a5, rook b6, knight a3, knight c6, queen d5, queen h4. Yeah, you're feeling the heat, but luckily for you, this knight has not gone the right way. It should have gone this way, and yeah, you could have just resigned pretty much. King g2, rook f6. You are still bad, but I like this move a lot. Rook h1. This is the sign of a seasoned veteran. You're playing with the composure of Rocky Balboa here.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. If he played chess and was under 1,000.
Yeah. He probably would be if he played chess.
Yeah.
Got punched in the head a lot.
Brain damage,
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, though. You're creating a spot out, and if your opponent didn't immediately kick you out, next move you should just bring another rook here. So that when you head over, you have the most pieces around.
Yeah.
So your opponent checked, and then, yeah, he got sort of full of the vinegar here. He took... You played a5. That's a very good move. I like this a lot because if you keep playing on this side of the board, you're going to get smacked, right? There's only so many defensive moves you can make. Like if you take here, the threats are just going to keep piling up. They'll play rook f6. You'll have to keep making defensive move after defensive move here.
At this point, I was thinking like my only way out of this is that he doesn't see how weak his back rank is, and I could sneak a win.
Well, I don't think just that. A5 is winning material. And
I mean, I was thinking that for sure.
Unless he gets checkmate, this is going to work. Now, the
Yeah.
thing is with all these pieces over here, he might have checkmate, but he might not. I think it was a very good plan here. And the whole idea is that, yeah, the reason why you would always have to keep responding to threats here is because you have so many weaknesses. Like rook f6, rook h2, then he plays queen g3, and he's attacking this, and you can't take because your king is pinning the pawn. And if rook g2, this hangs, and all of a sudden there are more threats. There's just going to be threat after threat after threat.
Yep.
So a5 was a great move. Knight e7, you checked. I guess you didn't want to win in style. You could have taken, they would take, and then you'd play b7, and I think you're winning here.
That would have been cool.
Well, they could.
Yeah, I guess the queen could just block it, right?
The queen could cover, but then you have. Okay, actually, yeah, this is at this point unbelievable.
I don't want to win in style.
You could play knight b5, and actually, if they play queen b8, they're winning. But hopefully, they'll just want to take the free knight, and then you play rook a8, and you got them bamboozled.
Nice.
So you didn't want to win in style.
Correct.
You didn't want to put all your chips on the line for the fancy feast.
I was happy to salvage my get 2 and 2 for the day.
Nice. Queen a8 is a good move. Your opponent played knight g8. You took. They took. Another great move here. You might be getting mated here, right? Depending on the situation. And also, I understand, like, if you're in 1,000 looking at this position, there's a lot of information here. It's not immediately clear that there's no immediate checkmate. It doesn't seem that there is. If they played rook g2, then you could take still. Even so, though, you made a very good move here. This is very wise. Just take. You're protecting your king. You're up a rook. You're going to coast to victory. e4, queen e3, knight f6. You played b7, another good move. Knight d7. So here you played king e2. I'm not sure what that move was about.
I think that I was feeling pretty confident, and I just wanted to make sure that my king was... connect my rooks, get my king completely out of dodge.
Why is your king safer on e2, though? That's what I don't understand.
Pretty much that the rook wouldn't have a check on me no matter what.
But this is not a good check.
Yeah, I did know. That does make sense.
And now the queen has a check.
That does make sense. I just was tired of being in that corner, essentially.
Yeah, they got you in the corner.
I was ready to get out of the corner.
Yeah, I think it would just be better just to try to include this rook a bit better. Put your rook on g1, threaten the trade, and if they play rook f6, then you just play rook g3 and everything is covered. You want to use this pawn in the best way possible. Now you could play king g2 with your rook shielding it.
Makes sense.
You're going to be completely safe here. Yeah, it goes without saying that if they trade, they only ever have a queen attacking you now. You would never get mated in a million years here.
Yeah.
You might still blunder this away. I've seen it happen, but you're not getting mated. So you played king e2, rook g3, and yeah, why didn't you take?
Wow, this is the same game that we're about to see another major.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the last game of the day.
You had to finish in style.
Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I was just I know what happened essentially. I was just tunnel vision completely on that corner.
Yeah.
And how can I win the game right now?
You're full of the vinegar.
Yeah.
So here it takes check, and yeah, for whatever reason, you are still completely winning, mind you.
Yeah.
You have nothing to worry about. But yeah, just taking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows what was going on with that?
That's the game I won.
Yeah. Looking forward to the other games.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at the next one. So you lost this game. I think objectively you played this game much better than the last, which really means it's just a complete roulette spin. It's crazy though. I think you played a very good game, and then all of a sudden you just botched the queen. And
Oh, this is that
yeah,
one.
was
Yeah.
that. It was one of them.
Yeah.
You botched them in several games.
Yeah.
People keep hitting you with the bishop c4 move. As said before, we suspect that it's because they learned this one scheme of knight f3, bishop c4, and queen h5. But the French is just completely bamboozling them. So they played a3. I would probably play c4 here. If you can push a pawn to the 5th rank while getting a tempo, it's a good thing.
Yeah, but watching the game now, I was just thinking, I hope I played c5. I mean, e5. Or no, c5.
c4.
c4.
Yeah, we're playing blacks.
Yeah.
They could play bishop check. They're not getting trapped just yet. If your pawn was on a6, you could play b5 and wall them in completely, which would be nice. But even so here, after bishop d7 and taking, you're obviously much better here. In general, when you expand your pawns, so long as they're defended, they're good. You don't want to just throw one pawn all the way up like this, because then it might become weak. But if they're part of a cohesive family, it's very good. Especially if it's with tempo. If it's with tempo, it's fantastic. If it's not with tempo, and what I mean with tempo is...
I understand.
Yeah. Because if it's not with tempo, for instance, like let's say something like this happened and their bishop was on a2, almost the same exact position. If we play c4 now, we haven't gained a tempo and they can just crunch. You know who likes to crunch?
Captain Crunch?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, you read my mind. Yeah. So, now a word from our sponsor.
Yep.
d3, knight f6, castles. Very good. I really like this. And you put your bishop on e7, you're aware of the fact you don't want to give them the free check.
Yep.
I think you're playing tremendous at this point. Knight f6, castles, castles, bishop f4, bishop g4. Very good move. A good rule of thumb here is that this pin is going to be very annoying if their bishop can't come here. This is like the classic cushion against the pin.
That's a good way to
Pin
put
cushion,
it.
yeah. Pin on the cushion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bishop is on e2, and then you don't actually have any pressure. But if this bishop is over here, bishop g4 is going to be good. They played knight d2. Like I was saying in that other position, this is one of the nice things about the knight being here. This is one of the few reasons you wouldn't want to have... You would want to opt for the knight avoiding the golden square. In this case, the red square, but you get the point.
Yep.
At this position, it might be a little risky. I would really want to try to wall his bishop in with b5 and c4. That's what I would be going for here. You played knight d4, which is also fine. This is also a very good move, actually. You're threatening this trade. Almost in all cases, knight for bishop is a good trade. Yeah. I'm telling you a lot of rules. I hope it's not overwhelming.
Yeah, some of them might go over my head, but I'll absorb most of them or some of them, so.
Nice. Bishop a2, queen b6. I have to say, you're playing tremendously up until this point. I would estimate your level as at least like 1600 USCF up until here. Yeah. Before you botch your queen.
Yeah. I got hot. I was feeling hot.
I was feeling hot and I put all my chips. Okay, you played h6, rook e3, knight f5. I think sooner or later this diagonal could become very weak. I would look at c4 here, and this is just a pawn sacrifice. The idea is takes, you're going to play bishop c5, and there is a lot of pressure here.
That does look good. I would not have seen that, but that does look good.
Yeah, I mean, they could trade the rooks and get some things out of the way, but at the end of the day, you have a lot of pressure here. You are giving up 2 pawns, though. They're going to take another pawn, but this looks really crazy. Like, takes. You could take with the bishop, and that looks like it would be good pressure. I think even stronger, though, would be knight e4. If you're able to take with this knight and have the bishop x-rayed against the king,
yeah,
this could be...
That looks very good.
Yeah, this could be free money. So, yeah, everyone likes free money. Okay, so yeah, going back, though, you played knight f5, which is a good move. Definitely nothing wrong with that. You're attacking the rook. Rook e1, bishop d6, takes, queen takes, h3. You took on f3. You have this free move here.
I was just looking at that. That's
Yeah.
my instinct looking at the board right now was the rook to E1 is
So
or E8 is correct.
you played it next move, but you played it after making this trade.
Yeah.
Why do you think rook e8 immediately? I'm pretty certain.
Because once the diagonal's open, the queen has more options.
Yeah, exactly. And the queen, especially in this position, the queen wants to be off of this open file, and it wants to be off of this rank, blocking the rook, so d2 is the perfect square for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's better not to clear the best square first and just play rook e8 immediately. And then if they play queen d1, they would take, and this is the same position, but they're going to have to burn a move on this.
Yep.
Nice. I think you're playing very well though. Like I don't want to get you too arrogant. Like that's always the problem. And just for viewers at home, I want you to understand this. It's great to see yourself progressing, but literally the worst thing that can happen from that is that it gets to your head and you start thinking, "Oh, I'm such a good player. I'm a fantastic player." It's important to take compliments with extreme levels of humility. I know so many players who got good and then they just started resting on their laurels. They started showing off their games to everyone. They generally played in these communities where they were surrounded by lower people, so relative to those bystanders, they were just so astronomically higher.
Yeah.
And they never get any better.
Yep.
They end up being like 22, 21, 2300. They play in these local club tournaments. If you want to get better in the long term, it's important to just stay extremely humble. Also, by the way, you'll notice that among the best players, the best players will rarely, except with a few exceptions, they'll rarely come out and say, "Oh, I knew exactly what was going on." They'll often say, "Oh, I think that was interesting. I think that was interesting. I'm interested in what the computer would say."
Yeah.
They have this extreme sense of humility.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like Aristotle was the smartest man because he knew nothing.
Yeah.
You have to be pretty smart to understand your limitations.
Yeah, that's wise. That's a pearl of wisdom.
Yeah, Aristotle made it up. He's a smart guy.
Yeah. So takes. Rook e8, queen d2.
Yeah, it would be so much better if the queen was out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. This is very high level stuff though that I'm explaining to you though. So it's
No, I could see it. Like even when I saw the position before you said anything, I could see that the rook was the correct move.
Yeah. I think you're still playing at a very high level though. I mean, I'm going to have to stop saying it because it's just getting repetitive at this point, but I'm very happy with what I'm saying.
Nice.
I think you should just play against this bishop though. Just play b5 and c4. Just lock it in. Yeah, that hasn't even. So you played king f8. This is another like, your pieces don't have anything to do here. So you're just making a good move. This is a good move. So like b5 was another sort of thing, but this is extremely. For those watching at home, Grandmasters, International Masters are going to know what I'm talking about when I say this. This is an unbelievably deep move that Kevin over here would play something like this, because in most positions, especially, you thought that you had the advantage here, right?
Yeah, but not a giant advantage.
Yeah, you definitely have a bit of an advantage. You have a better center. This bishop, it is putting a bit of pressure here, but it's still ultimately bad. Your pieces are a bit better. This is a sign of a very mature player that you're happy to just build up the position and not really do anything. Most players get this position and they just go crazy. They get too full of the vinegar. They play something like knight d4. They try to go queen e6, queen e2 immediately, but none of these ideas work. If you play queen e6, they're just going to hit you with rook e1. So this is the perfect position where you want to be calm and flexible.
Yeah, plus I wanted to... Yeah, I didn't like that the bishop, if anything happened, was pointing right at my king, and plus it defends the rook, was my general.
Yeah.
So it just freed up two things.
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic move here, because it just, even if the rook comes here, like, if you trade this, your king is better placed. Now the queen can't invade here.
Yep.
It's just a very good... It's not a fantastic move in terms of the effect it does, but it's a purely good move.
Nice.
It does a lot of tiny things that are unequivocally good. So they played c4. This was something I was really happy about, to see you play d4 here. That's a fantastic move. Make this bishop doo-doo.
Yeah, it's
pointed straight in.
I thought I had this game in the bag.
Yeah.
I was so happy.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this one's in the bag, baby.
Yeah. No, but honestly, I'm really happy to see this. It's sad that you botched the queen in the end. But,
Yeah.
it's fantastic that you played this. How quickly did you play this? You played this in like 10 seconds. That's fantastic.
Oh, I had my eye on the bishop. I knew that was a bad move by that guy.
Yeah, he just made his bishop doo-doo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would take so many moves for him to get that bishop to do anything ever.
Yeah, it could technically get here and slowly come out, but that's going to take a lot of time. And even here, you can just play around the fact that it covers this square. This is the only remotely useful square. Like, you could just put your rook up, bring your king up, and the bishop isn't actually doing anything still.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bishop does technically have a long way to get to something more useful, but this would take so long, and this is way beyond the level of anyone.
It's essentially like, it's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see this, though. This is good. This is very good chess. Like, okay, you botched the queen, but once we work on that, it's going to be smooth sailing. So here, another very good move, b6. So after a4, you made a bit of a mistake here. It would be ideal if when this trade happens, you put a knight on this square. This is an extremely good square for the knight. Why do I say that? Because there's a weakness on d3, a weakness on a4, and ideally, if we take and take, his bishop is doo-doo, but his rook is finally getting in.
Yeah.
So we would love to keep this pawn here. This is going to be concrete against the rook, if we can keep these pawns like this.
That makes sense.
So how could we reroute a knight to get to this square?
So we only have one move, though, right?
Yeah.
In one move.
No, 2 moves.
Oh, yeah. So the F bishop to the D rank.
Nice.
A D file.
Knight d7, exactly, yeah. And F takes, knight takes, this is a dream position.
Yeah.
Now their queen is tied to this. Yeah, in general, we're honestly not going to talk about this much in a really long time, but this is what's called a Benoni. This is like this is a Benoni structure that black has, or white has here. Normally it's a black opening, so it's reversed, and black has the pawns on d6 and c5, and white has a pawn on d5. But it's more or less the same thing, and you get a knight here. The knight is golden here. It's a great square. It hits d3. It's on an outpost. It can never be targeted. It's reinforced by this. And yeah, this is just such a healthy arrangement, especially with the bishop here. This was definitely lost for him. Like, for reference, in those Benoni positions I'm talking about where normally black takes on the structure, the bishop is on a much better square over here, where it's looking down the board at least. But in this position, the bishop is just dead. Yeah, this would be really beautiful. And this is I really like this move as well, because now it gives him an interesting choice. He could play b5, but then he gives up on ever activating his rook.
Yep.
In that way. And he's committing another slight positional sin of
1 moment.
f6 would win. We do need to be a bit careful, right? Keep in mind, this is all based on the fact that the queen cannot take our knight. If the queen could take our knight, this would be extremely risky. But the idea here is that if their bishop moves anywhere, we finally got rid of their pawn.
Yep.
And that's an accomplishment. And if their bishop moves back here, then we would just trade it and then get rid of their pawn, all the same.
Yep.
They could play knight h4, and now they're really going bonkers. They're going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But then we can just play g6 and defend the knight, and at the end of the day, the bishop is still running out of squares on this diagonal.
Yep.
Yeah, remember I think, so let's finish the game, and then I'll go on a bit of a tangent with the knight h5 stuff. So they played queen a4, queen g4, they just botched their queen, and you took. Okay, yeah, so that's what I was thinking of. 2 people botched their queen. One time it was you, the other time it was your opponent. So, okay, briefly going back to this decision with the bishop on f4. You'll notice that in most of these positions, I'm not just teaching you rules, I'm teaching you rules based specifically on what your opponent is doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very big difference between the rules that I'm teaching you and what you'll find in most like chess instructional manuals. You understand what I mean? Like, most chess instructional manuals will just tell you what to do regardless of what your opponent does. And at lower levels, you need to teach people in such simple forms because, like, it's just such a complex game. That's all they can understand for the moment. As you get better in chess, though, you're going to realize that the higher you get in the game, the more you just apply these simple relationships, but with tremendous nuance to the interconnection between the two. So, for instance, here, knight h5, in general, knights on the rim are dim, knights in the rim are grim. It's a terrible idea, but if you're kicking the bishop off of a diagonal, if you're harassing a bishop that is 2 squares ahead, this is a very common idea in this case.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna start to appreciate that. Throughout the lessons, we're gonna be talking about a lot of these tiny little nuances of very understood and very known rules.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was thinking of recording this without you even in the room, but for now, what we're gonna do with Kevin, I would estimate that Kevin's tactical abilities are pretty strong. I think he's around 1200 tactically. Objectively, I don't even know why his rating is this low. I think over time his rating would approach 1200. Positionally speaking, he's doing fantastic. I think he's already like 1600 level. So what we're going to do is we want to get him on a really fixed opening regimen. I'm going to recommend him to learn the Anishgiri short and sweet on Chessable. That's going to be good. I think it's like going to take him a few hours, and we'll structure it out for him to maybe spend an hour on it every week. And then apart from that, I'm just going to have him really hammer in tactics. He's going to be doing tons of tactics. I think I'll recommend him a book by Susan Polgar. He's the editor guy, so he'll have that somewhere around. But yeah, I think it's Chess Tactics for Champions by Susan Polgar.
Do you recommend like for when you say tactics, does that mean like doing puzzles or?
Yeah, pretty much puzzles. Tactics, those are normally the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you should do like 2. You think you could do 3 hours of tactics this week?
In a week, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so 3 hours of tactics, 1 hour of opening, and there we are.
Nice. Well, thanks, man, and see you guys later.
Yeah. See you.
Yeah. Nice.